Welcome back for chapter 3 of Pig Heart Boy. So remember, we have been introduced to our main character Cam, and he's a boy and he's got something wrong with his heart, so it doesn't work very well, so he can't do lots of the things his friends can do, and he's getting quite worried because it's getting worse. Chapter 3 is called News. This is Sammy, by the way. He'll be keeping me company while I'm reading to you. As I turned the key in the front door, I could hear at once that Mum and Dad were at it again. "Now there's a surprise," I mouthed silently, adding, "I wonder what they're arguing about today." As if I didn't know. Shutting the door quietly behind me, I tiptoed through the hall to the living room. "No, I won't allow it!" Mum raged. I recognised that tone of voice. It burnt like a laser. I winced, aware of how my dad would react to it. I wasn't wrong. "Don't talk to me like that. I have some say in this too. And I've weighed up all the consequences. I've listed all the pros and cons. We don't have any other choice." "We? This has nothing to do with us. You went ahead and did this all on your own, as usual." Mum's voice was lemon bitter. "You make it sound as if all I was doing was thinking of myself. Weren't you?" "Of course not." "Now why don't I believe that? My mum has a saying, 'Never stick your head where your backside can't follow.' Mum wasn't letting Dad get away with anything. But that's exactly what you're doing. You're getting us into something we'll never get out of. And you didn't even ask first. It's for Cameron's own good. It's for the good of this whole family." "Because you say so," Mum scoffed. "From where I'm standing, it looks as if what you want to do is deform your own son." I nodded grimly. I guessed Mum and Dad would be arguing about, and I was right again. I hated always being right. Mind you, I hadn't heard this particular argument before. This one seemed to be a new track on an old CD. "What do you mean, deform?" Now it was Dad's turn to hit the roof and pass right through it. "How dare you say that? You wouldn't say that if this was a human heart." "But that's the whole point. It's not, is it? You want to make our son a pig heart boy." "A pig heart boy? What on earth was Mum talking about?" I frowned as I leaned in closer. "Better a pig's heart that works than a human heart that doesn't," Dad argued. "Better than no heart at all." "You think so?" said Mum. "Yes. Don't you want our son to live?" A slap, like the crack of the whip, made me flinch as if Mum had slapped me instead of Dad. Silence echoed through the house. "I'll never forgive you for saying that to me. Never." Although Mum's voice held quiet fury, there was more than a little hurt in it as well. I love Cameron desperately. I'd do anything for him. Anything. If I could give him my heart, I would, but I won't let you use him like this. "Kathy, don't you think I've thought about this?" said Dad. "Don't you think I've lain awake at nights thinking about this? I've thought of nothing else but Cameron for the last 2 years. Our son has a year to live, at most. There simply aren't enough human organ donors to go around. So we have a simple choice. We can allow our son to have a pig's heart, or we can watch our son die." "You'd really let them implant a pig's heart into our little boy?" "I don't want to see him die," Dad interrupted. "And I've been reading up about it. The doctors have been using pigs' valves in heart surgery for years." "A valve is different to a whole heart," Mum argued. "Not so different. They use pig skin for skin grafts on humans. Pig insulin is supplied to diabetics. Pigs' heart valves are used all the time, so why not use a whole pig's heart?" "It's not the same," Mum insisted. "What's different?" "Well, if you don't know, then I can't tell you. Look, this is Cameron we're talking about here. Our son Our only child, said Dad. I leaned against the wall and looked down, way down past my feet, past the carpet to a place far below me where I was totally alone. My stomach was churning like a liquidizer. Beads of sweat prickled on my forehead like hot needles. A pig's heart. What was the phrase Mum had used? Pig heart boy? Kathy, it's not as if they go to the nearest pig farm and pick out any old pig. They have pigs which have been especially bred for this. And that makes it all right then, does it? Asked Mum bitterly. Yes, it does. That's the whole point, Dad replied. Stop it! Stop it, both of you! I shouted. I couldn't bear to listen anymore. I turned and raced up the stairs, stomping down with my feet as hard as I could as I ran. I only got halfway up the stairs before I started hurting, so I slowed down, but I didn't stop. Cam? Cam, wait! Mum called out. I didn't answer. I couldn't. But I wanted to let both of them know that I was here. They were talking about me as if I didn't have a mind of my own, as if I couldn't make my own decisions. How could they? How dare they? It was my body, my heart. Sorry, hamster distraction. I threw myself down on the bed. I'd barely caught my breath when there came a knock at the door. Cam, can I come in? Asked Dad. I suppose so, I muttered. Dad walked into the room, followed by Mum. Without preamble, Mum asked, Did you hear what we were talking about? I think the whole street heard, I replied as I sat up. Dad sighed. I'd rather you hadn't heard the idea that way. What way? I asked. With your mum and me arguing about it, he replied. I didn't see what difference it made. At least by eavesdropping, I'd heard the truth as both Mum and Dad saw it. But now they'd changed their way of talking. Now they'd talk to me in a way they thought I could understand. A way suitable for a teenage boy. All false smiles and falser promises. Cam, Dad began as he sat down on the edge of my bed. Cam, a few months ago I wrote to a man, a doctor, called Dr. Richard Bryce. I looked across at Mum, who was leaning against the door. Who's he? He was a surgeon, but now he's an immunologist specialising in transgenics. Huh? What's that? What's transgenics? Transplanting the organs of one species of animal into another. Why would anyone do that? Because there aren't enough human organ donors, Dad explained carefully. So people like him are trying to find other ways of keeping people like you alive. People like me. I winced at Dad's phrase. I mean, people who need hearts or kidneys or livers to have a decent quality of life, Dad added. I said slowly, so you want me to have a pig's heart? I want you to have a heart that will allow you to do all the things you want to do. All the things a boy your age should do. And that's where Dr. Bryce comes in. Transplants are his area of expertise. I wrote to him via a newspaper to tell him about you and your case. I thought he might be able to do something to help you. I also sent him a letter of permission so that he could get your notes from our doctor in the hospital. Why didn't you tell me before? I didn't know if Dr. Bryce would want to help you. I didn't want to raise your hopes only to see them dashed again. We've been down this road twice before when we thought you'd be able to get a heart transplant from a human donor. Remember? Yes, I did remember. How could I forget? Once, I'd even got as far as the hospital, only to be turned back. A greater emergency had required the heart. I had been pipped at the post. Mum and Dad were furious. They'd stood and ranted at the hospital staff for a good 30 minutes. It wasn't their fault. The heart had been diverted to another hospital. There was nothing they could do about it. And then Mum had burst into tears. No, I was not about to forget that little episode. Not if I lived to be 90. I sighed. Dad, I still wish you told me. Don't worry about it, Cam. He didn't tell me either, Mum piped up from the door. I looked at her. She was so unhappy, so tired and so unhappy. This was what I was doing to her, doing to my family, tearing them apart. So what's happened? Has Dr. Bryce agreed to do the heart transplant then? I asked. It's not that simple. Dad shook his head. Dr. Bryce has agreed to come and see us to talk about it. I certainly wouldn't agree to it without talking to you first. So when does Dr. Bryce want to see me? Dad looked from me to Mum and back again. He's coming to see you tonight. That's the end for today.